Hi guys, it's Carrie with Happy Fish Tarot, and today, just for fun, I am going to show you my tarot deck collection. I have actually had a couple of people request that I make a video like this, and I haven't gotten around to it yet, so I figured it sounded like fun to do that today. I kind of have grouped them approximately in order of how often I use them, so I'm going to start with showing you the ones I use the least, and I'll work my way up to the ones I use the most. The first one I'm going to show you is the Yoshitaka Amano Tarot. When I was younger, I was really into the early Final Fantasy games, and Amano did the concept art for the Final Fantasy games. So when I started getting into tarot and I found out that he had done a deck, I knew I had to have that deck. So I got this off of Amazon, and I have actually never used it for readings. This is the only deck I have that I would say is really just purely because I wanted to have it as part of my collection. The art is really pretty. I grabbed a few cards so I could try and give you an idea of the style. So I don't know how well these will show, but that's the Death card, and then this is the Hanged Man and the Hierophant. The next couple decks, I've included them in this video, but technically they're not really my decks. The next couple decks I'm going to show you are really my husband's. The first one I got for my husband. Now, he doesn't do readings with tarot. He uses the cards once in a while as inspiration for his writing, so he'll use them to hash out plot lines and develop characters, things along those lines. This deck is the Art Nouveau Tarot. After I purchased this for him, I learned there's actually several different decks that have similar names. This particular one is called Tarot Art Nouveau. I got this for him because he really enjoys this style of artwork, but to be honest, neither of us are particularly smitten with this deck. The art is nice and it's visually appealing, but I don't find it to be particularly evocative. A lot of the images in this deck seem really repetitive. I'll show you a few cards. Basically what you have in this deck is a lot of gorgeous topless people, both male and female, and while I have nothing against gorgeous topless people, when you look at 78 cards full of them, they all sort of kind of blend together. The Shadowscapes deck also is technically my husband's deck. He picked this one out for himself. He really liked the art style, and I know a lot of people love this deck. I see pictures of it all over social media, and I know a lot of people are really attuned to the imagery. I have not actually used this one myself. I have looked through it, and I honestly have really mixed feelings about this deck. I know that's probably not a popular opinion. I can't say that the art is not gorgeous. The art is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. The style actually reminds me kind of the Amano deck that I showed you earlier, but I have a hard time using this deck to actually do readings. I have a hard time connecting with the images in a way to translate them into actionable advice the way I would with most of my other decks. This deck is the Deck of the Bastard. I did a full review of this deck a while back, so I'll put a link to that below this video. This is an independent deck, and it's really pretty awesome. The deck designer calls it the Deck of the Bastard because it takes some bits and pieces of various different decks and kind of melds them together to form something new. The numbered cards are essentially the Rider-Waite images that we're familiar with, but the court cards as well as the majors come from a variety of places. So it's really cool and really unique. It's also designed to kind of have this antique look to it. You'll see more of that if you look at the full review I did of this. This is my Cbd Marcia Deck. This is a deck I got a while back when I got on this kick and decided I was going to learn the Marseille system. I'm not very familiar with it because I do mostly Rider-Waite-based decks. So I got on this kick and I got this, and I got a book as well that is based more on this particular tradition. But I have to say I kind of fizzled out on learning this. I've used this deck a little bit, but I feel that this is a deck I need to really devote some studying to before I'm able to get the proper amount of return from the cards. I want to get more familiar with the imagery in the majors and really just give it some more scholarly attention. So I enjoy this deck. I think it's really interesting and fascinating, but I've sort of shelved it for now because I feel I can't really work with it until I learn more about it. The Nouveau Tarot is one of the first decks I ever bought, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about this deck. I sometimes find that for certain readings, I feel very intuitively drawn to use this deck. But unless I get that feeling, it's not a deck I use terribly often. I have used this in some of my work with clients, and I find that when I do feel that pull to use this deck, I get really clear, actionable readings from it. The reason I think I don't consciously choose to use this deck more often is the artwork is very hit or miss. I believe this deck came out in the 80s. I'm not sure about that, but the imagery makes me think that it probably did. Oh, I'm looking at the box. Copyright 1991. Let's be honest, the early 90s were basically an extension of the 80s anyway. So some of the images in this deck I think really remind me of like a cheesy 80s workout video, but other images in the deck are really, really pretty. One thing I really enjoy about this deck, the court cards of the different suits have this super gorgeous imagery that's really evocative of the elements, and they have these really fancy clothes, and it's gorgeous in that regard. But some of the images and some of the people in this deck just are so just cheesy looking to me. So anyways, this is the Nouveau Tarot. The Tarot of Pagan Cats is a deck that I almost did not purchase, but now that I have it, I really, really enjoy it. There's a lot of cat decks out there, and obviously I love cats, but most of the cat decks that I've seen online have imagery that just doesn't sit well with me. What I like about this deck is that the cats in this deck are behaving normally. They're not put into situations where they're displaying overtly human characteristics. They look like cats, they're behaving like cats. And the artwork is also just very pretty. It's not cartoony. It's not overly bright. It's really just kind of nice and soft, and it's actually just really gorgeous. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, for a while I was doing weekly readings with this deck where I would put the pictures next to my cats, Nanners and Lulu, and a lot of people really got a kick out of that, and a lot of people thought that the artwork was very pretty. Okay, now we're getting into the decks that I use more frequently for readings, both for myself as well as for clients. The Prism of Visions is a relatively new deck. I backed this on Kickstarter. It's actually so far the only deck that I've backed on Kickstarter, and that was a really fun experience. It's just kind of neat to follow along as the deck is actually being created. I decided to back this because I saw some of the sample images online, and I just thought that they were really unique and really wonderful and really kind of imaginative and evocative. I will probably be doing a full review on this deck in the future, so I won't say too much about it right now. The Dreaming Way Tarot is another one that I have done a full review on in the past, so I will also put a link to that below this video. I won't add too much more about this deck right now because you can see all my thoughts on this in the review, but it is a deck that I use more frequently, and it has kind of this whimsical, quirky feel to it that really connects well for me. people seem to have kind of some divisive views about this deck. It seems to be one of those decks you either love it or you hate it. I happen to be somebody who loves it. And the Wild Unknown, anybody who has looked at my Instagram or Facebook or has any knowledge of me whatsoever probably knows this is one of my absolute favorites. This is yet another deck that I have done a full review on in the past. I have to be honest, I've almost taken that video down from YouTube because it was when I had first started making videos and I was so like tense and uncomfortable through the whole video that I can't stand to watch it now, but it's had quite a few views and maybe it's helped people determine if they would like to get this deck for themselves. So I will leave it up and I will put a link to that review below this video. Okay, so now we are on to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I thought that I had 3 versions of this deck, but when I gathered all of my decks together to start to film this video, I realized I actually have 4. So this is the first deck that I ever purchased. This one has really harsh coloring, and also the titles of the cards are not in the artist's original handwriting, they are in type font. So those are the things that I didn't really love about this deck, which is what led me to then purchase the Radiant Rider-Waite. This has much better coloring, at least for my taste, but it still has the typewritten titles on the cards. So after I got this one, then I moved on to getting the Universal Waite. And for a long time, the Universal Waite was my standby Rider-Waite go-to deck. This has harsher coloring. It's not quite as bright as the coloring in the Radiant deck, but it's very kind of nice and a little bit muted and a little bit more soothing than the first deck that I purchased. And it has the handwritten titles on the cards. So I was using this one for a long time and really enjoying it. The only thing I wasn't completely over the moon with about this version was the backs of the cardstocks. They are just kind of plain and really boring. So then I got the Centennial Edition. This is the one I've been using for the past few months, and hopefully I think I have now found the Rider-Waite-Smith version that I will be sticking with for hopefully quite a long time. This has all of the qualities that I wanted in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It has nice coloring, it has the handwritten titles on the cards, and it has a nice back on the cardstock. Alright, and last but not least, this is actually the only Oracle deck that I have so far. This is Connected and Free, the Alchemist Oracle. This is another independent deck, and I started seeing pictures of this one coming up on Facebook and Instagram, and right away I was very intrigued and I knew that I had to get this deck. It has this stunningly gorgeous imagery, and again, I'm not going to say too much about this one right now because I do plan at some point to do a full review of this. The imagery in this deck, the first thing that I thought when I saw it is that it reminded me a lot of the Wild Unknown. And when I started putting pictures of this deck on my social media, I got quite a few people commenting and saying that that was kind of the impression it gave them as well. That's fine with me because, again, I adore the Wild Unknown, and so I was more than happy to have another deck with similar imagery. So I do really enjoy working with this Oracle. It's all over my social media. I'll put a link to my Facebook and my Instagram below so you can check that out. And again, I will be doing a more detailed review on this one in the future. So that is it so far. That is my collection. It was fun to ramble on about them. I enjoy watching other people's videos when they show off their deck collection, so hopefully this was fun for you. If you have any questions for me about any of these decks, you're welcome to let me know. Thank you for watching. Make sure to visit me at happyfishtarot.com. I write blog posts every week, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for the occasional times that I decide to make a video. I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.